What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind. Now today I will be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man, a Sony reboot of the Spider-Man movies which had so much promise but yet failed to deliver. Now, let's get into it. So the year is 2007 and Spider-Man 3 has ended the series on a low note. Now Sony are very disappointed with this. They thought that Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire and all of the others involved with Spider-Man 3 would be able to create a good movie, just like they had the other two. However, this failed. Now, Sony, in order to keep the rights to Spider-Man, decided to 100% reboot the franchise after an attempt at Spider-Man 4 failed. Okay, so the idea of this reboot, I was actually up for the idea. When this movie was released, the findings were discovered and everyone found out that they were going to make a rebooted Spider-Man, I was up for the idea. I thought, okay, this might work. I'm willing to give it a go. Now, there were three things which made me go into this movie. The first was that it starred Andrew Garfield. I had seen Andrew Garfield in a couple of movies and I did like his work. I thought he was a likeable actor, and to be honest, I thought, you know what, if you're going to get anyone to play Spider-Man, pick a Spider-Man fanboy, which Andrew Garfield is. The second thing which made me go in to see this movie is because it was being marketed as the untold story. We thought we were going to see a film which was actually better and actually had a more compelling story. And one which was going to tell us, something we didn't know about Spider-Man already. And the third is that it looked like a dark tone. Now, I know many people don't like this idea of Spider-Man being dark. They think he should be a light character. But I thought the dark tone might work. You might be able to get into some of the darker stories, like Kraven's Last Hunt, for example. And another little guilty thing of mine is it starred the Lizard, and the Lizard is my favourite Spider-Man villain, so I thought, you know what, I'll go and see this no matter what. Now, I went into the movie theatre in 2012, really excited about it, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be a good film, but I came out thoroughly disappointed with it. Now, before I get into the negatives of this movie, which there are so many negatives, I'd like to talk about the positives. The one positive which stands out among all the others, and I think what most people can agree on, is Andrew Garfield. He is the best actor in this movie. He's the best aspect of this movie. As a Spider-Man fanboy, as I've already stated, he wanted this role. If you actually look back, he wanted this role so much. It was so important to him to not only impress the fanboys, but also impress himself with his own idea of what Spider-Man is. And he does do an amazing job in this movie. As Spider-Man, Peter Parker, one of my favourite scenes in this movie is the carjacker scene where Spider-Man confronts a carjacker, and the scene is just the gold standard for Spider-Man. He is so witty in this scene and it is a really good scene. The comedy element in it is really, really strong. And you get the feeling that is Spider-Man. And when I saw that, I said, you know what, this could be a really good film. They've got a comedic Spider-Man at last. Sometimes I felt Maguire's Spider-Man was not funny enough, so I thought Garfield was actually doing a better job. Unfortunately, there's hardly any other comedy elements portrayed with Garfield's Spider-Man in the movie. All the other jokes that Garfield makes in this movie fell flat. And I don't blame Garfield for this. I do blame the writers for this. It is the writer's job to create a sense of comedy if you are doing a Spider-Man movie. And I feel like the writers did fail in this instance. Another positive is the dark tone. I know, it's controversial. But to be honest, I like it to an extent. The problem that I do have with Maguire's films is they do feel like comic book movies, where when I was growing up, I thought, that's brilliant, that is Spider-Man. But as I'm getting older, I do feel, yeah, it is a bit cheesy, the humour in it does not work, and the tone is very much like a comic book, which is good, but in The Amazing Spider-Man, they do ground it. You get the sense that this is happening today. When Spider-Man is flying around New York City, you feel the weight of those scenes. You feel like you are with him, and there is a lot of the fights in these scenes. They are very, very well done. the ones you get. There are not many fights in this scene, but the ones you do get are good. Sony gave a bigger budget to this movie. They wanted it to be a success, and they did do a good job. The fight scenes are really strong, and I have to admit, I really did enjoy them. Now let's get into the negatives. So many negatives. The first negative is Emma Stone. There's nothing for her character to do in this movie. Now don't get me wrong, Emma Stone is a great actress and I really do like her. But the only two things her character Gwen Stacy does is she's in love with Peter Parker and she can create lizard serum. That are the only two things she can do in this movie. They could have done so much with her. She's a brilliant actress. And Gwen Stacy is a great character in the Spider-Man comics. So they could have done something here. But they failed. They really didn't do a good job. I feel so sorry for Emma Stone because I'm sure she would have been a brilliant Gwen Stacy. So I do feel sorry for her for that. The other negative point is Lizard. My favourite Spider-Man villain. They fail him. There's no characterisation and you don't feel why he's doing what he's doing. He grows his arm back and then he tries to turn all of New York City into lizards using a gas. That's a terrible idea. In the comics, Lizard had a wife. He had a son. You felt weight there. You understood why Lizard was doing what he was doing. But in this movie, you don't feel anything for him. He runs around just trying to turn everyone else into lizards. And you don't even understand why he is doing that. You know, there's one scene in the sewer where he talks to himself. And it's a rip-off of William Dafoe's Green Goblin, but it's done more poorly. Because you just don't understand why the lizard doesn't act like that in the comics. And I know you adapt things for film, but they really did a bad job on adapting that. Because you just didn't understand why he was doing it. And the plan that he has going on top of the tower and turning all of New York into lizards. Why? Why is he doing that? Another point about this movie is wonder. Everyone has been saying this movie was basically made so Sony could stay in the rights. And I get that. I get that Sony don't want the Spider-Man character to go back to Marvel. They'd do a better job. We've seen it with Spider-Man Homecoming. But, in my eyes, if you were going to make a reboot, try and pick a director who is actually going to create his own movie. When Sam Raimi did the first Spider-Man film, it was a Sam Raimi movie. The practical effects, some of the over-the-top comic book situations, it was a Sam Raimi movie. Mark Webb doesn't do anything in this to make it his own movie. Sometimes it comes across as basically a music video. There are so many montages with Peter Parker on his skateboard and there's singing and someone's singing a music video that you just wonder, why? You know, just songs to fill the soundtrack. And I'm guessing they're supposed to add emotional value to the scenes, but they really don't. I don't feel any emotional value towards this. And I don't think anyone else does as well. You know, I wish they'd really stop doing it. If they're going to make a Spider-Man movie, then at least try and make a movie. Don't just make a movie so you can hang on to the rights for a few more years. I know that's what you do, Sony. Everyone knows that you do that. So I'm glad that you actually sent the rights back to Marvel because I don't want to see another reboot like The Amazing Spider-Man. And the last negative, Uncle Ben. Now, what they do with the character of Uncle Ben in this movie is they basically tell the same story as they did in the first movie. Great power comes great responsibility scene, and then he gets shot by a robber. Now the only difference is they don't even use the line. When Cliff Robertson and Tobey Maguire did the first with great power comes great responsibility scene in the first Spider-Man movie, it was done so perfectly, so raw to the comics. But with this one, he doesn't even say it. He just says, not trust, responsibility. Okay? What's that supposed to mean? It doesn't add anything to the character. The guy who plays Uncle Ben does do a good job. He does a decent job. But the script is so poor. And this is what annoys me about Sony. Their executives begin to get involved with the script and they completely change it into what they want it to be. All Sony wanted this to be was a rip-off of the first film. That's all they cared about. They thought they paid to see it once, they're going to pay to see it again. And like Muppets, we did go and see it again because it was marketed as a different story. And, you know, on a narrative, Aunt May in this movie, played by Sally Fields, let's just say that she's just a nagging, whining bitch that just complains constantly, and you don't feel anything for her. You don't understand why she's in the movie. Apart from being Peter's aunt, she's pretty much useless. I don't know whether to blame the scriptwriters, I don't know whether to blame Sally Fields for how she portrayed the character, but whoever it was, Sony, you made a massive mistake in casting Aunt May and the characterization in which you did. Maybe you should have just gave it back to Marvel when you had a chance. So, in conclusion, The Amazing Spider-Man is a film which I was deeply looking forward to see. It was being marketed as the untold story, and I thought this is going to be a brilliant film. Unfortunately, Sony didn't deliver. They basically gave us the first film, just in a darker, edgier turn, with less compelling characters and a really pointless storyline. Now, I came out of this disappointed, but I thought, you know what? You might be able to do something. You might be able to save this. If you did a sequel, you might be able to save this movie. Then they made The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And let's just say, Sony can fuck off making any more Spider-Man movies on their own, because in recent years, they have failed. And to be honest, I am more than happy to let Marvel take Spider-Man from here. I feel they do a better job with the character, I feel that they understand it more, and I feel that they actually care about it. They're not just making a movie for the sake of making a movie. So that is my thoughts on The Amazing Spider-Man. If you have taken time to watch this video, I do thank you very much. If you would please like, comment and subscribe so I can give you more content like this. Hopefully it will actually be better. I might be able to even afford a decent camera to record this on instead of using my phone, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So guys, thank you for watching and I will see you in another one.